Welcome to Dear Workplace. I'm your host, Monica King, and I'm excited to return with new stories and insights for you as you step into summer. Just in time to tackle a theme that's coming up more as we enter a time of transition with the vaccine and hybrid workplace culture. Trust and authenticity at work. When you think of being authentic at work, what comes to mind? Stories of how transparency permitted you to find new trust and camaraderie? Or being hurt by others who took advantage of you? At a time where there is so much sharing encouraged online and at work, how much sharing is being transparent versus oversharing? Should I really share how I feel annoyed about someone typing out loud or being roundabout in a meeting? Should I really share that evening hours are when I work best compared to morning?
I am who I am, and this is me. I'm just being authentically myself because of my upbringing, because of who raised me, because of my parents.
Being yourself, because people can spot when you are being inauthentic.
Well, I think your authenticity can be empowering. In other words, you need to own who you are, your creativity, your ability to expand into a space, what you dream of, as well as your shortcomings.
It shouldn't always be a conflict between. So it's not about I want to be authentic and I hence want to leave everything about me, my job, my family, my home, and I go settle somewhere else and I'm in a forest and being authentic. Or it doesn't have to be that radical.
We're a Black company, and I'm Black. We're just not some white person who's behind the scenes pretending that we're something that we're not. Like, it's me, and I'm a part of the community, and I'm going to make sure that we stay authentic. I think that has been a really important aspect of the company.
Yes, being authentic is important, powerful, and most importantly, liberating. To be able to show up and live as who you truly are, to speak what is on your mind, and to express how you really feel, both as an individual and as a company. The hunger to want to connect with more people, leaders, and companies who are truthful, thoughtful, and vulnerable has grown even more during the pandemic as we all struggled with new challenges that we never anticipated. What we don't speak enough about is how much courage it takes to be authentic, why it's so hard in certain situations, and what we can do differently despite the challenges.
Can you be authentic and still be good at what you do? So it's not about I want to be authentic and I hence want to leave everything about me, my job, my family, my home, and I go settle somewhere else and I'm in a forest and being authentic. Or it doesn't have to be that radical. You can be authentic in, the little bits are what make up the whole. And I think in order to innovate, first you need to be authentic. You need to really look for what you want to do and what you like to do. And if probably we didn't have the calling to make impact, and impact doesn't have to be only in a social way. Impact can be in businesses, impact can be in education, impact can be in other spaces. If we didn't have this calling to create impact, we probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. I would be in a very cushy job somewhere in Seattle.
We can't be authentic without taking the time to learn who we are. Meet Prabal Banerjee, co-founder of Epicenter Consulting in India, focused on rethinking how we think, see, and solve problems differently to keep both the big picture and details in mind. Starting this company was a step towards being authentic for both him and his wife, Surabhi Thakurata. They left their cushy jobs, Prabal at Amazon and study at various teaching and HR leading roles because they realized while the work made money, it didn't lead to the impact they thought they could make nor happiness.
My last large corporate job was working for Amazon. Like I said, I was managing global processes, businesses out of Canada, sitting in Bangalore and managing it across 5 continents, etc. So it was a very different experience, huge unlearning, lots of learning. But I think, a question that bothered me for quite a while being, I used to manage very large groups of people being, program managers. So there would be around 1,000, 2,000 people working for me. And there would be these things that I saw which made me question if businesses can consider emotions, ethics, and experiences. These were the questions which really drove me all my corporate life, and this conflict between profit and purpose, and questioning the duality between the same. That's what kind of led me to coming to Bangalore.
Leaving a guaranteed job to start a new path takes courage. But when you see how happy Prabal and Sudhabi are now to live their truth every day in the work they do, you wonder how we can take an earnest look at how we feel about our jobs at work. What makes you really happy? And how are you designing a life where you can thrive and be happy? Prabal reminded me that the first step to honoring authenticity is having a strong sense of self-awareness and taking the time to really learn yourself. Ask yourself these questions and reflect for a moment to wonder, how well do you know who you are? What drives you? What bothers you to the stomach? What do you believe in? And why do you care? When we know who we are, it helps us understand what truth we want to first stand by. That understanding has a direct impact on the work we create. Meet my friend, Dr. Stephanie Han, the author of the award-winning fiction collection Swimming in Hong Kong, speaker and instructor of creative writing and literature.
Well, I think your authenticity can be empowering. In other words, you need to own who you are, your creativity, your ability to expand into a space, what you dream of, as well as your shortcomings. Okay. If you can kind of acknowledge the whole piece of who you are and write with this, whatever you're trying to contribute, whether that to be an organization or a community or a family issue, I think that the group will receive you differently because you're coming from a space of honesty and integrity. And what you're trying to do is honestly contribute, and you're trying to align, in a sense, your purpose individually with a greater purpose. So I think that's the key. And that's also the key to good writing. The writing that we love and the authors and the stories we like to read come from an authentic space where there's people are uninhibited and they're brave. So if you can be brave on the page, you can be brave in life and vice versa.
Bravery. As a writer and instructor who uses words to empower others, her insights on authenticity is spot on. Being authentic isn't just being truthful to others. It's being aware of what you create and why you do what you do. To approach this wholeheartedly, you have to be present to really know what you are truthfully feeling, seeing, and want to create. Now, I know how anything I do, including writing, is not at its best when I'm doing it because I have to, and not earnestly. From a social media post copy to culture development strategy, when I'm wholeheartedly present to what I create and why I want to say something, I'm able to communicate more impactfully. People seem to resonate with what I'm sharing and why, including myself. A good example in the business world is how Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, turned things around in 2008. It was the height of a recession. He was just brought back as CEO, More than 600 Starbucks stores were closed, and about 12,000 workers lost their jobs due to the massive layoffs. How do you make things better from there? Somehow, he did. And it started with 2 things he did during a meeting in front of all his partners and employees. Something that you'll see leaders do rarely. He apologized and was brought to tears. He apologized for letting them down, his partners, their families, and the 200,000 people who wore the green apron working at the company. He apologized for not taking action sooner for what they deserved, a promise of growth and opportunities. And because he spoke with such care, his next message of how we could all take action to turn things around resonated with everyone. His transparency catalyzed new hope among the people, and they realized they had each other's back. It's one of the many stories that leaders go back to about the power of vulnerability, being authentic, and taking the courage to be transparent. But crying in front of everyone to share your struggles as a leader? Honestly, that's not always easy. I was humbled to recall how nuanced these moments can be during a coaching conversation with a client. We discussed why, in certain moments, colleagues checking in on us made us feel appreciated, but also a little concerned. Yikes! They saw me at a low point. Are they going to judge me? Even when a colleague asks us how we are doing, depending on who we speak with, we might share our autoplay answer. I'm fine. Even if we are not. So how do we determine what we share? And if we choose to hold back, does that make us bad? Sometimes it just doesn't feel safe to speak what is on our mind. When I asked this to Heather Murphy and Eli Murphy, they shared some insightful perspectives. Context matters when it comes to being authentic.
Being yourself, because people can spot when you are being inauthentic, I think. And for me, I think Heather and I think we look at this differently as in our earlier discussion, that for me, I actually do feel like I change who I am to some degree for who I'm but I'm not being inauthentic. I'm choosing parts of myself to reveal in others, maybe not, and strengths that I have in one moment but are different in others. I think Heather is a little more honest, maybe is the word I put. Who Heather is who Heather is, and you're going to get that whether you like it or not.
They all love it.
They all love it. That there's, I think, there's both those strengths.
There's some adapting, certainly, and I can control myself in different situations. But there is an element of, in whatever you're doing, the authenticity is certainly important. And, we talk about that in a lot of our classes, the difference between, influence and manipulation, and authenticity is often the key there. For me, I think I talked about being ourselves as more of it's a comfort to me. And I think it changes the dynamic in the room. So in any room. And so, the version of me you see might vary a little bit depending on the context and the situation, but I'm always me, right? And I think that was a challenge for me to get to that point, because I don't know if it was earlier in my career or just as I was changing from role to role, you feel like you have to play a role. Here I'm supposed to be more professional and buttoned up and and maybe I was. And in some contexts that was true. There were certain scenarios where I wore a suit and I did visually look more buttoned up and more professional. So context matters. But even then when I got to a point that I could just kind of lean on the podium and tell a joke or laugh at what someone was saying or just relax, right? And not be so worried about the way I was presenting myself and just focus more on the dialogue that was happening in the room and bringing myself to the table. I think it made a huge difference in the reaction I got from other people in the room and in my own enjoyment of what I was doing. So, and that was a huge hurdle for me. So I remember distinctly the meeting where I walked out of there, the session, and thought, oh my God, that was so much fun. And the difference was I was just me. I was able to focus on what we were doing and less about the role I thought I should be playing.
Yes, That part of the nuance I feel is hard. At times, showing your vulnerability as a leader, what you haven't delivered as a company, or how you missed something as an individual is difficult because we feel that's not how things are supposed to be done. Both Heather and Eli reflect frequently on these nuances in the workplace as Heather helps other leaders assess the skill as a leadership facilitator and coach, and Eli networks actively with multiple stakeholders as a sales director at Salesforce. As they both weave through different stakeholders and work environments, they realize how much the workplace context influences how we show up, and how adapting isn't necessarily being inauthentic. It's important to know what that nuance is and why it's happening. And as a leadership coach myself, I too resonate with these points. Context is golden to how we authentically show up differently, which is why no matter how truthful one is, how comfortable and psychologically safe we feel in a room and a setting matters. It's the difference of feeling that I can be myself versus feeling I have to fit in a certain role. And for me at times, that means showing up as Monica as a person versus being self-conscious that maybe I'm the only person in the room who doesn't have a STEM education, who is a female, or who is Asian. I'm still going to speak up. But there will be a nuance, difference of how alert I feel when I show up in a room that makes me feel I have to show up a certain way. This is why Dr. Hunt speaks about the importance of needing to write your own narrative, especially when you feel like an outsider.
The difficult thing, as I said, when you're a woman, when you're trying anything, is you often don't have as many role models, maybe immediately around you or even visually. So you're uncertain if you should be on a path. So you often might, feel like you should quit. You can always pivot. Pivot is not the same as quitting, right? But don't quit just because you don't see something in front of you. You have to become what you're imagining in your mind. Right? You have to write yourself into existence, literally or metaphorically. Don't quit.
Being authentic means not quitting on your voice. This pandemic has been a timely moment in which we are learning how to honor our authentic voice more than ever. How happy you really feel about your job or not. Realizing what is a priority in your career. Security, money, or the opportunity to grow creatively.
It's not only for poets and for vegans and for hippies to talk about. I think the world with the pandemic has come up to realize that, and as we take on the future much earlier than we thought it would arrive, I think being authentic, knowing that you want to create impact, knowing that this is what really drives me, and following that path.
We are now 15 months into the pandemic. I'm noticing more people leaving jobs, starting companies, and starting new careers. Now that more people are getting vaccinated and people have had time to reflect, more are willing to make the daring decisions to choose what really matters in life, earnestly for them, instead of what society says they should do. The key is to take the time to listen to what you really want and why before you jump into leading it. Because when we do, we will live more each day without feeling like we have to be someone else. Thank you for joining us. This is Monica King, your host at Dear Workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Special thanks to our guests for sharing your insights. In our next show, I'm eager to dive into a skill we're all regularly dealing with: ambiguity and how to navigate uncertainty. Bring your questions and thoughts, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, hi. I'm Creep Handy, a web designer and developer at Innovators Box, and I hope that you're enjoying Dear Workplace. A little fun fact about me: I have a doppelganger. Yep, the first time I met her, though, it was at an event where we both attended, and my colleagues went up to her and asked her, when did I, well, or she, had time to change into a new dress? Who would have thought? This show is brought together by our awesome team. Producer Serene O, audio engineers Sam Lamart and Ravi Ladd, Kelly Gravo on marketing, myself as a website designer, graphics designer Monica Escobar, and Luke Helder on music. And of course, Dear Workplace is hosted and directed by Monica King, founder and CEO of Innovators Box. To continue the conversation of reimagining the workplace, visit us at innovatorsbox.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share. We would love to hear what you enjoy, and also drop us a note if you have any specific topic that you'd like us to cover. And I'll do all that I can to convince Monica to talk about it in our next episodes. See you next week.